Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk
Radio. You're listening to Remotely Unique with Mary Baca, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi there, this is Mary Baca coming to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is my first show today, so I'm going to share a little bit with you about how I even got started in terms of deciding to do a radio show. I was a guest speaker on a radio talk show in 2015, and I had quite a bit of fun doing it. I got some information out to the public about EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a phenomenal treatment for trauma. And in fact, in the future, I'll be having a show dedicated to just that. But I had a good time getting information out that later I received feedback that was helpful that it was helpful for people. And I had a good time at the same time, so that's a win-win. Anyways, I've been working on getting this radio show together, and I've met so many amazing people in my 30-year career that I've been in this field of psychology, and I'm even a holistic practitioner. And so through the different radio programs that I'm going to have in the future, I'll have some of those people come on and talk to you about different information. Like I'll be having Rita Abeda at some point come on and talk about meditation. She does our meditation program for us, and Elizabeth Oriel does great energy work, and even Bonnie Bassan is our yoga instructor here in Albuquerque. And in fact, they all are part of a team. It's a certification program for trauma called Resilient and Strong Trauma Professional Certification Program. And so I'll have them on and some of the other people from the team in future shows. Today I have with me a guest who's also part of my team of first responders. His name is Mike Romo, and he's one of several people who here in Albuquerque are on a peer intervention support team called Behind the Badge. And he is a newly retired firefighter with Albuquerque Fire Department, and he can tell you more about himself. But the way the team works is if anybody local or even national wants to talk to anybody on the peer intervention support team, they can access them through Remotely Unique or any of the websites that are listed at the end of the show. And you can talk to anybody either through the phone, in person if you're here local, or even Skype. So if you're in need, sometimes it just really helps to talk to somebody who's been there. So any of the first responders listening today, keep that in mind and let us know if we can help you in any way. So Mike Romo is with us here today. Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for joining us today, and I want to ask you some questions about retirement. Getting ready for retirement is one of those things that I think it's like when you go to college where you can just hardly wait for the day to come, when you can finally seal the deal and get on with life, and then you figure out that close to the time of retirement and during and after, it's got some challenges. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you have faced when you were getting ready to retire and now? You retired, I know, in December of 2015, so it hasn't been that long. So what would you say would be some of the challenges you've had to face?
Well, first off, Mary, thanks for having me on this morning. It's funny because I feel like a rookie again. I'm a rookie retiree, I suppose. The getting to the end, like you said, there's that anticipation of this is the end. I'm getting the chance to move on. I'm not going to have to do the things I did before. I'm going to get to do some other things. But there are definitely some adjustments to make, and there's a lot to think about that in just that transitional period. Of course, you've got to do all the seminars and the paperwork. It's different in every place that different responders work. But here we attend some seminars on understanding how our pensions are working and how taxes work and how health insurance works and and all the intricacies of moving into the retirees portion of our lives. And so that's all something to be done there. And then there's the work you have to do through my agency, which is the city of Albuquerque. You've got to do all the processes through them. You've got to give them your official notice and turn in your official paperwork, and I am going to retire, and give them a prospective date, and so they can do all your calculations. And there's mostly a lot of math and that they have to do with the administrative side. Hopefully you've done the math correctly, and we're all going to be able to live on our pensions, or we have contingencies in place, other jobs, part-time jobs, maybe starting a new career. Most of us start young and we retire young, and people often tell us, "Oh gosh, you're too young to retire." And I always respond with, "It's not my age, it's the mileage." And it usually gets a chuckle out of people. And basically, it's time. We all have an expiration date for what we do as responders, as firefighters, as paramedics, police officers. Same story. Military folks. We have an expiration date. There comes a time when we have to stop doing what we're doing because it's time for us to move on.
And that's one thing, Mike, I know that a lot of people I've talked to have a hard time with, is because it's a huge change in identity, right? For me, it doesn't feel like it's been a huge change. I really felt like I was closing one door, opening another door. There was not I think some folks, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I have some folks I've talked to that they miss the job, they miss the guys, and I read a quote by a retired fireman a few years ago that really helped me get my mindset for retirement. And he said, when they asked him, let's say he'd been retired 5 or 10 years, and somebody asked him and said, "Do you miss the job?" And he says, "Let me answer it this way." He said, "I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus." And I found that very profound, because I miss the guys I work with, but I don't miss the other not so fun parts of the job. The brotherhood and the camaraderie and the time with the guys at the station and in the truck and on the job is invaluable. I do miss that to a certain extent, but I don't miss having to get up at night to go on calls. I don't miss having to put my fork down before I've taken the first bite of dinner to go on a call. Right.
I don't miss getting seeing the horrible things I've had to see, and so it's been there's good and bad in all that, but it has.
Right.
I think that quote really helped me organize myself so that when I got to that point, I could look at it as in a smoother transition. Some guys don't have that opportunity, and it's tough for them, I'm sure.
Right. A lot of guys do struggle with that. A lot of firefighters and police officers. And, I think everybody does in general struggle, or many people struggle with retiring in general, but the culture of fire and police and EMS have some unique things, like even the schedule. So, like, for example, how did your kids and your wife adjust? Because you go from being gone, in your case, gone 48 hours and then home. How has that been?
It's funny because I'm sitting next to my wife here, and she, when you asked that question, I got the smirk from her. We used to joke about it. There was a comedian many years ago we heard say, "What's the secret to a long life and a long marriage and a happy marriage?" He says, "Love each other, communicate, trust each other, and stay the heck away from each other." And we always used to joke about it and say, 48 hours at a time, and then laugh. It's been different. It's been interesting being home every night. Most of us, and let me preface this, most of us don't just work our 48 hours on and then 4 days off. Most of the guys I know, the people that I know, every fireman has 1 or 2 or 3 or more part-time jobs that they do. They run businesses, they do contract work, they work in other services, and work at hospitals and clinics, and do all kinds of stuff, because that schedule is kind of strange regarding childcare. Some people have, 2 full-time workers, and they juggle it. Ours was different. We didn't really have much of a support system when we started out, and so we elected for me to work extra, and she stayed home to raise the kids. And now that I'm home every night, I will say this: it's nice coming home and sleeping in my own bed every night, and not knowing that I'm going to have to get up and go take a call, or 3 or 4 after midnight, being at home. But I know it's definitely different with myself being at home more often now.
In what way?
My wife and my kids see a lot more of me than they used to, which we haven't figured out yet how good or bad that is. I'm not quite 2.5 months into retirement, so we try to keep a sense of humor about things, and it has been nice. I've been able to do more with the kids regarding school. If there's something going on at school, what do you know? I'm not on duty for parent-teacher conferences, and I'm not on duty for this whatever event is going on at the school, and there's a way for me to just juggle my schedule and be done, instead of going, I've got to find a shift trade, or I've got to take vacation, or whatever to try and make this event, or I just have to miss that event. And it's
right, which I'm sure
that's been really nice.
I'm sure that used to happen a lot. I'm sure that used to happen. I'm sure that used to happen a lot. Over how many years were you in the fire department?
I was 20 years on the job, and it was when the kids were little, it was easy. We could reschedule Christmas. The kids couldn't use the calendar when they're 2 years old. They don't know that Santa comes on whatever day, so we could reschedule that to when I was off work. But once they get older, it becomes a little more difficult to straighten that out. Or Thanksgiving, when everybody else is off, everybody else has a 4-day weekend, and I'm working the day out Thanksgiving and the day after. It was the things we did, which is still common and still done, is we used to have a big Thanksgiving dinner for the families at the station. Everybody would bring, it would be potluck style, and we would bring a bunch of stuff and cook for everybody that could make it, and we had Thanksgiving at the station. And then,
and would you be taken out? Would you be taken out of service at that time, or if you guys got a call in between, in the middle of the mail, you had to go, right?
We went. We had to take it. There was probably 2 or 3 Thanksgivings that we left all the families at the table with all the wives and the kids at the tables, and we said we'll be right back. And we hopped in the engine and off we went. And then whenever we finished our call, we came back, and they all kind of had this. The ones that hadn't seen that before really got an understanding of what life's like at the station. It's you got to go. I used to joke, you call, we haul, and that was what we did. That's what we still do. That's the guys that are on duty today are doing exactly that, and I'm glad they're there doing it. I know there's been a couple of times when I've been out to breakfast and. Had some firefighters there eating breakfast, and same thing, they got a call and they had to leave. They had to leave, pick themselves up, go on the call, and leave their whole breakfast there. So I can't tell you how many times I left a beautiful hot meal with not even a bite taken out of it.
Right.
To go on a call.
So how do you? You kind of described the logistics of getting ready for retirement. How did you prepare for retirement emotionally? Like, even just what we're describing, like, having to get up and literally be ready at any second, I think our mind and our bodies get conditioned to kind of be like that. So how have you wound your body down and gotten ready for retirement emotionally and physically?
Emotionally, it was the last few weeks and months were tough. It was getting tougher and tougher to just feel like I got to go to work. But I realized I'm almost there. My service credit's almost earned. I'm almost ready to retire. You actually gave me the term anticipatory stress,
right?
And I'd never heard that before. But that is exactly what it says: the stress of anticipation. The entire 48 hours I was at work. None of that time belonged to me. That time belonged to the agency I worked for and the people I served. And if they called, we had to go. Whether we were training, whether we were asleep, working out, eating, cooking. There was some downtime. We were reading. Some of us were studying for promotional exams. Some of us are in school and taking classes. All those things are happening, and everything is subject to interruption, whether you're in the shower or the other places occupied. You had to go. The call came in, the tones dropped, and we had to be on the road within about a minute. That was the expectation. And it was all day long. Any little crackle on the radio speaker at the station, or any little noise that the computer in the engine would make, is enough to cause a nervous system response, a sympathetic nervous system response, and you're always in that heightened sense of awareness. Even when we got to sleep, which became more rare as the system had gotten busier. Even when we got to sleep, you never could really just power down and get into that deep sleep, because you knew you had to potentially wake up for a call. You had to be awake enough to hear the tones, and I think I looked forward to that more than anything, and I haven't been disappointed. It's been really nice.
So you haven't had a hard time making that transition, like your body, or especially closer to when you originally retired, did your body just transition, or did you find yourself, having some sleep issues, or like what was that like for you?
I had an epiphany about sleep a few years ago, and I made some really substantial changes. I attended a workshop from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman called The Bulletproof Mind, and he talks about sleep and the necessity of sleep and how it affects your health and your emotional state, and it's profound. It's really more of a medication than anything a doctor can prescribe. If you're not sleeping, there's not a medication that's going to make you better. And I had made some pretty serious adjustments to my sleep habits. Things like making sure it's quiet. I would wear earplugs, sleep mask, cut out the lights, try and keep the room cool, all those things. And I had to reteach myself to sleep, even when I was at work. It's tougher when the tones go off. That I could still hear that, but the subtle noises had gone away. And I feel like I adjusted fairly quickly to enjoying my sleep at night. The thing I did notice was sometimes when I was still working full-time at Fire, there would be some days that I actually had the night off and the day off, and I would sleep in. As long as the kids and the dogs let me sleep in, the dogs didn't start barking and the kids didn't start making a bunch of racket, I could sleep in. Sometimes I would get, 8 or 9 hours of sleep, and I would wake up grumpy. It just wasn't enough. And now I've noticed that there are nights sometimes I stay up late and I have to get up early, and I might only get 6 or 6.5 hours of sleep, but I feel incredibly rested. And I think it's because I don't have that anticipatory stress when I'm sleeping.
Right.
And it's been, I know some guys have difficulty sleeping, and I think it's very much dependent on the individual. For me, it was sleep is nice, and it has come fairly easily to me. I can't complain.
Well, I've talked to a lot of people who have had a hard time sleeping even while they've been working. So, on their days off, I don't know what your sleep was like before, but on their days off, that it seems like that first day off after your cycle is really, one of the most challenging, because you're trying to integrate back into the home environment. And I got to say, wives and spouses of firefighters and police, you guys are like some of the strongest and most amazing people I know, because they have to be very independent. They have to be like single parents, while you guys are gone. But how was your sleep?
No, it's not. That's more profound than you think, because my wife and I we usually sit down every little while and we discuss about all the family and home emergencies that have happened in the 20 plus years we've been together, and there's a tiny number, probably 3 or 4, that have happened when I'm home. I'm always at work. My daughter falls off the trampoline and breaks her arm. Where am I? I'm at work. There's a water leak. I'm at work. There's a flat tire. I'm at work. The keys get locked in the car. I'm at work. The you name it, I'm at work. It seems like it never fails. You know, Murphy's Law, Mr. Murphy watches my family while I was at work. And it was it's almost a running joke. And it's funny, we would tell the new guys that are, especially if they're newly married, would say, you need to be, we'd pull their wives aside when they'd come by the station. And we'd tell them, do you understand what you're getting yourself into? Do you know how to use a screwdriver? Do you know how to use a hammer? do you have someone next door you can call, because this is going to happen.
Right.
And it was very much single parent. She was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to be able to be that independent, and that's strong.
Well, they're so amazing. In fact, the first 4 segments of my show, I'm going to be talking with first responders. And that last segment will be talking specifically with wives and first responders. And why I'm so passionate about, people are probably like, why are you so passionate about these first responders? You're not one. But I've actually been working with police and firefighters and EMS people for over 15 years now, probably about 20. And in that time, I've learned quite a bit about the culture and just the good, the bad, and the ugly. You guys have a tough job, and also a very rewarding career. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it, right? But definitely tough, and a job that extends out in terms of how big of an impact it has, not only on you, but on your family, and your friends. So that's been amazing to me. And even back to the tones, and the anticipatory stress, I've had people come in over the years and talk about distress over the tones. So in terms of sleep, just being always ready to get that call. And the other thing too is not knowing, you can get a call that comes in one way, and by the time you go to respond, it can be a completely different call. And those are things I think that the general public doesn't really know. So, that kind of feeds in, I think, to getting ready for retirement emotionally is, did you go through any kind of, I want to say emotional clearing, or, again, how did you make that transition emotionally from that intensity? And you finished your career with as a captain. I mean, you did so well at climbing the ranks. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, absolutely. But how did you deal with that emotionally? Going from this high impact, high intensity, situation to not.
That's a great question, and I'm not really sure. I will say this, that every fireman, no matter, most of our business here in Albuquerque, about 90% of our business is emergency medical service related. So only about 10% of what we do is on the fire side, with fire alarms and wildfires and structure fires, house fires, gas leaks, things like that require us to actually do the fireman part of our job. The rest of it is the EMT and paramedic part of the job. And I can tell you, I do have one part-time job that I've had for several years in EMS. I work at a national lab here in Albuquerque, Sandia Lab, as a paramedic, and we just do EMS there. It's generally pretty low stress. It's a very safe place to work. There's not a lot of action goes on there, and it's kind of a senior man's gig as far as part-time goes. But on the fire side, I can tell you this: there's nothing. It's always hard to explain this, because I never wish anything bad to happen to someone. I would never wish for someone's home to burn down or their car to burn up or anything like that. But I always felt like if it was going to happen, let it happen when we're on duty, when my crew's on duty, because I know that we bring the best that we can bring to the table every single time. And I know every other crew feels the same way. I can probably generalize. But there's nothing like a good working fire, and I could probably jump right into that without too much of an issue. Looking forward to it, but the EMS side, I really can't say I miss too much about it. There's right. The opportunities to help somebody who's really having a true medical event, somebody who's having a heart attack, who is having a stroke, who is having a seizure, and really needs medical care that we have to provide, that's always extremely satisfying. It's the other calls that are not so emergent or not emergent at all, that kind of wear you down over time, and I don't miss those at all.
Well, I know a lot of times people tend to use, they call 911 for nonsense things like being taken to the ER with a cold or, something like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to sick calls and tummy aches, and it's frustrating. It gets frustrating for the guys, and I think that contributes to a lot of the stress of what we're highly trained, highly skilled, highly motivated individuals who are ready to provide excellent service in a true emergent nature, and that's so rare these days that you feel like your skills and your motivation are being wasted sometimes. And then you get the chance to help somebody, and you feel rewarded again. It's one of those ups and downs. And like I said earlier, I talked about the expiration date. My expiration date is there. I made it. I feel like I was able to transition and move on. But probably the last year that I was with my crew, I made it an extra point to try and scour out all those little tidbits of knowledge and experience and information that I gathered over my career and pass them along to my guys to say, I'm not always going to be here. I'm not going to be here in a year to navigate you guys through this situation. So this was a similar situation. This is what I learned. This may be what you can consider.
So would you say that you started to prepare in the various ways, like the last year that you were in?
I would say so. Yeah, I made some very serious preparations for myself. I looked at finances. I looked at the logistics of, gosh, I'm not going to have to do a pile of laundry every 6 days and get my uniforms ready. That whole pre-work routine of the evening before I would go to work, I'm already thinking about it because I've got to make sure my uniforms are clean, my bags are packed, my equipment's, the stuff is at the station, but the stuff you take with you, because you're gone for 48 hours, so your toiletry kit and your, whatever, if you're in school, studying, your promotional books, whatever. You have to have all that packed and ready to go, so when I get up in the morning and I'm not scrambling around the house to get things organized. I had made a routine. I go to work, I work my 48, I come home, get out of my uniform and get into some civilian clothes, and then like you said, you have to transition from firefighter, paramedic, captain, whatever rank you hold, whatever job you hold, to husband, father, regular guy.
Right.
And that takes a few hours.
Right.
I talked to a couple of friends of mine who had been deployed in the military, and we talked about the timeline of the pre-deployment timeline while they were deployed, and then when they came back. And I asked them if it was a fair comparison to say that the 60 or 70 hours surrounding the ship, the 48 hours in the middle, the time on the front end and the time on the back end, is that a fair snapshot of a 12-month deployment? And they seemed to agree once we sat down and asked each other questions about how it was. And I've never served in the military. I've never been deployed, but they agreed that you being spun up to be deployed, that's you're getting ready to go to work. Then you're at work. You're deployed. You're there. You're in harm's way for a period of time. Theirs may have been 6 months or 12 months or whatever the armed services sent them to do. Mine is my 48-hour shift. And then they have to come home, and they have to reintegrate into civilian life, or even into active duty life, where they're not in a combat zone, where I'm not on the truck with my personal protective gear, where I'm not first out, where they're not having to go outside the wire, and it takes a lot of time. And it's, of course, the longer they're deployed, the longer it takes to power down, to spin down. And that's how it was with me. If I took an overtime, it was 72 hours, and now I've got to turn off 72 hours of work. And
Well, that's the other.
That was definitely a transition for us, and it was one of those where I finally learned at some point near the end of my career that because one of the things that happened to me is I felt like my wife had been home with the kids for this whole time, and I needed to come home and give her a break, and it just never worked out that way because I came home and I wasn't in husband father mode. Right. I was still trying to turn that off, and so I did more harm than good. Usually, I caused more angst and stress than I took away. And it wasn't until near the end that I learned. I would come home and she asked me, "How was the cycle?" And I said, "It was busy." She said, "How was last night?" Well, we had 3 after midnight, and she would just look at me and she'd say, "Go to bed." And I would go and change my clothes and put on my earplugs and put on my sleep mask, and she would shut the door and I would go to sleep for a few hours.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing I think that a lot of people don't realize or know is, when you come off your cycle, like I was saying earlier, and you are off, that first day off is not really, you're not really present.
No.
I think in a lot of situations, or most situations, really.
Usually,
would you say that's true?
I would say it's absolutely true. Usually not until late in the evening or way late in the afternoon did I finally feel like I was human again. Because I didn't feel sometimes so human when I was on the job.
Explain that.
Feel like a superhero. No, I didn't feel like a superhero. I felt like I had to compartmentalize things, my emotions, my feelings, those things. You have to keep those reined in and locked up and secured because those things take away from your decision making ability. When you're in the middle of when you're fighting a fire, or you're working a cardiac arrest, or you're on the freeway with a 4-car crash, and you've got 3 lanes of I-40 blocked, and it's scary out there. There's traffic, there's cars, there's trucks, there's noise, there's wind, there's debris, and you have to have your faculties about you, and so you have to pull those things in. So you kind of look at everything, and sometimes it's kind of cold and formal and clinical, but it has to be that way for us to maximize our abilities out there to do the best job we can for the people we serve.
Well, I know one of the things you and I have talked about that's kind of interesting, and next week we're going to talk about PTSD and acute stress, and get more into detail. But one of the things, again, bringing into the situation, the family, is you're right. You get into that clinical mode and you have to filter everything else out. So sometimes, like if your wives or husbands, your significant others have an emergency at home, and you and I have had this conversation, Mike, where you can kind of minimize it because it's not, the blood and the guts, so that's something too that ends up affecting the family, is that attitude of, so talk to us about that.
That's so true. There was times I remember when my kids were little, little kid running across running across the backyard or the front yard or whatever, and they fall and skin their knee, and they cry, and you're like, you're fine, and then you don't even realize you're doing it at the time. You're like, my God, you got a little scratch on your knee, you'll be fine. You take it inside, you wash it off, and you're good to go. And that's not what they need. And I guarantee, I can tell you with 100% certainty that I was guilty of that on many more than one occasion.
So how do you think you are now? Like, I'm probably post-retirement. How are you with that?
I think I've been substantially better since I was diagnosed with my PTSD and did my treatment and have taken much more ownership of what I am. And just so the listeners will know, I'm probably going to be talking about PTSD in the future because I feel like a success story. My family and I feel like a success story because we're still a family. But I feel like once I accepted myself and my flaws and faults and imperfections and started moving forward to healing, I became much better about that, much more understanding, much more, okay, that's your son, he fell, he hurt his arm. Go over there, pick him up, hold him, let him cry, and be a dad and stop being a firefighter right now, stop being a paramedic. And once I was able to consciously see that, I was able to consciously do it.
Right.
And I feel like I have, like that's, I'm far from perfect. It's far from automatic, but
we're all a work in progress, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
But you are going to be on actually next Monday, March 14th. Yourself, Loriana Sargent, who's a firefighter lieutenant with Albuquerque Fire, and also Charles Luetta, who is I don't know if he's a lieutenant, but he's with Bernalillo County Fire, and you're going to be on talking with everybody about PTSD. So I think that'll be great.
I think Chuck might be their senior paramedic firefighter. He's been around for a while. I've known Chuck for a long time.
Saying? Yeah, I do know that too. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking.
He's a leader. Chuck's a leader, and you think leadership comes with rank. Sometimes it doesn't. It comes with who you are. I look to him for many years. I've known him for a long time. But that's going to be a fun show. But you're right. What you're saying is you have to be able to consciously make that decision. And sometimes when you're in the haze, when you're in the dark places, it's really hard to separate that. It's not instinctive. It's instinctive to be tough and hard and have that hard crust on the outside that keeps the bad stuff away. And you can't do that with your family. If the listeners are out there and they're feeling like they see themselves doing that, that's a great place to start looking at yourself. Is what happens when my little guy falls down, or when my baby girl falls over and skins her knee. How do I react to that?
Well, and two, even the compartmentalizing that you talked about earlier, that's the stuff that I think is probably hard. When you do retire, it's not like all of that goes away, so there's this, almost look at it, I'm going to call it a learning curve for lack of a better word, and you are newly retired from December. So I look forward to talking to you maybe 8 months down the road and seeing what other insights you have about, how you've adjusted mentally, physically, and emotionally from coming from a job where you've had to do those things, compartmentalize situations and emotions and thoughts and transitioning into, normal life,
I'm excited for this adventure. Some guys are not excited. They just kind of get to retirement and they're tired of the job. They hate the job. Whatever their motivation is for retirement, they feel like it's time to go, and then they have remorse. So far, I can't say I have any remorse about retirement. I've enjoyed it thus far. It's been great. I've been able to do some things for myself. I feel like I have time for myself, which I always felt a little guilty working so much that if I took time for myself, I took time away from my family. And a few years ago, I finally realized that I needed to have time for myself so that I could be there for my family. And it's counterintuitive to the problem-solving nature of firefighters and responders. How can I possibly make more time for my family if I'm taking time for myself? And it's not the quantity, it's the quality of time. Am I really there for my family, or is the work of me there for my family? Right. And that was one of those things that I had to learn. And now I can, when my wife's at work, the kids are at school, I can go in the garage and do my thing, and it's my thing. And then when they get home, if they want to do something, hey, let's order pizza, or let's sit down and watch a movie, or let's go to the movies, or whatever, then I'm there.
Well, and what are some of the great things? I know you've talked a little bit to me about some of the great things you have going on now that are post-retirement. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny because every retiree that I've met jokes around about I'm busier now than when I was working. And it took about a month and a half, but it caught up to me. Sherry's laughing here. But it absolutely caught up to me. I have to stay busy. I have to stay active. I took up blacksmithing a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and it was just a hobby. And I've always felt like I do the best work I possibly can, no matter what I'm doing. And I've been able to sell a few of the things I've made, and that really has brought me peace. That was one of the therapeutic modalities that I figured out for myself. I get to go in my shop and I get to create something at my own speed with my own skill, and it's important to me. And then now I get to share it with people. So I've kind of started doing that on a part-time basis,
And so did you kind of plan that? When you were getting ready to retire, was that part of what you included in your planning, is making sure that you were going to have something to kind of transition into?
Once I realized that other people actually liked what I was making, and some of them were willing to pay me for it, I thought, you know what, this might turn into a little bit of a business. And so I have a little bit of a business going on. And, of course, like any other small businessman, I'm behind on orders, but it happens, which I think it's better to be behind on orders than wishing somebody would buy my stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that actually, it seemed to be a fairly natural transition from doing it as a hobbyist to going into the shop with an order. I need to make, I need to forge this many bottle openers, or I need to forge a wine rack, or I need to make this kind of a knife, and that's the plan. And it's kind of funny because I haven't done much actual work in the shop other than organizing my shop, because making it go from a hobbyist shop that's a mess, like, my desk used to be, piles of stuff and stuff thrown together where I have to clean up, do this one thing, and then, well, shoot, I got to work tomorrow, so I've got to go do laundry and leave my project where it was. Now my shop is becoming, I'm getting it tuned up. I'm almost there to where it's a working shop and not a have to clean it to start something, to have to put it down and go to work. So that's been a lot of fun too. I've been able to work on my new workspace. So
right.
It's been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it so far. I have to say that if you're someone who retires from doing our job, you keep asking me about, did I do anything to prepare myself emotionally? I think more than anything, the guys that survive retirement. We survived our time on the job, clearly, because we're eligible for our pensions now, and we're collecting them. But the guys that survive retirement that I've seen are the ones that stay busy and active physically and mentally. We everything we did on the job, whether it was running a serious call or managing a fire or just talking trash around the kitchen table, because the guys are brutal, and you have to be a quick-witted guy. You have to have a thick skin and a quick wit, and you have to be able to debate and banter back and forth. All those things keep you sharp. And if you go home and you sit on the couch and you eat bonbons and potato chips and watch, TV, you lose that edge. You become dull very quickly. And I think that you have to stay active. Find something that you do, that you enjoy, and that will keep you challenged physically, mentally, even spiritually or emotionally. If you want to write a book, now's the time to write your book. If you want to compete in sports competitions, at the master's level, because we're not spring chickens anymore, then do it. If you want to start a business, do it. If you've thought about doing it, do it. But go and do it. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you, and don't just become inactive. You have to stay. You got to, like anything, you have to keep sharp. And I think that the guys that don't make it through retirement are the ones that go home, and sometimes they needed help for a lot of years. And a couple of those guys have found their end at the bottom of a bottle, which was unfortunate. We've had a couple guys retire in the last few years, and one of them, he literally drank himself to death in just a few months.
Right.
And I think if he had somehow been able to find something that was challenging to him, he would have been, he'd still be around.
Mike, the other thing, though, too, I think that's really critical here, too, is I think that if you're doing pretty good and you're pretty solid and stable leading up to retirement, I think then the chances of you getting through more smoothly are more likely. And I think that you're being kind of conservative in terms of painting the picture of really how much work you've done on yourself over the years and leading up to retirement. I think that's probably really helped you transition into retirement and do as well as you're doing.
If I hadn't gotten the help I did when I did, I can tell you that I would be divorced. I certainly wouldn't live in the house I live in now. I certainly wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing right now. I guarantee you I wouldn't be retired because fiscally you can't make it. Financially you can't make it. My kids would be. I shudder to think about it. It would be awful.
Right.
My wife and I were able to we saved our marriage because we got help. I got help. We got help to make this, to get help to be right, to be okay for the kids and for each other and for ourselves. And I've been doing that for the last few years. And once I realized how much help I needed and how much help I was getting myself, I needed to share it with others, and that's kind of how you and I have come to work together. It's that if you want to, the guys that, like I said, the guys that need help, if they get all the way to the end of their career and they still need help, they can't work anymore because they're done. They're cooked. They're beyond. We call them, they're crispy. They're just so burned out. They're just burned up. There's nothing. They really have virtually nothing to offer anybody else other than the basic skills of what they know how to do. It's tragic to watch those guys have to struggle with life.
Right,
they could use some help.
And next Monday, that's why I'm glad we're going to spend the next couple of shows talking about PTSD and acute stress, because if you don't manage it, it will manage you. It will just really cause a lot of problems in life, and it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah,
it'll grind you up. There's no question about it. It will absolutely destroy you. And I have PTSD. I'm not cured. I don't know that I'll ever be cured. I don't expect to ever be cured. But I do expect that the things I've learned and that I'm going to continue to learn will help me manage myself and be the best of me that I can be. And that involves much more than just me. It's my family, my kids, my friends, my peers, my coworkers, even strangers that I run into. And it's all about accepting my faults and my imperfections and my failures, and that I'm not some superhero that, just because I'll go into a burning building or do CPR on a stranger does not mean I am not a fallible, emotional human being.
Right.
And that was huge to come about. But going back to retirement, I've really enjoyed it. I'm enjoying it thus far. I can't see it. I can't see it getting worse. Right.
I mean, absolutely.
I will say this: the coolest thing is, like, you all of a sudden you check your bank statement and you log in to check your bank balance. You're like, hey, look at that! I got paid. I didn't do anything this month. It's kind of funny. It's a joke. Everybody laughs about it, except the guys that aren't retired yet. But but that's you look at that and go, I made it. I made it, and I'm going to keep making it. And I don't mean the money. I mean life. And right. It's but I think it has that whole, you have to prepare yourself in advance. What's it going to be like? It's not all
right. And going back to the peer support intervention team that we have going on, if any of you out there want to, you don't have to just talk to any of them about stress. You can even talk to, like Mike, about retirement, so they are really a great group of people, and I'll be posting their names and bios and all of that on the Remotely Unique website, which is remotely-unique.com. And you can also access us through Facebook and you can get a hold of them and talk to them really about anything. And you don't have to be local. That's a great thing about technology, right? And telephones is you don't have to be local to be able to talk to Mike or any of the other people on the team. So I'm glad you're doing so well, Mike, and I look forward to having you back on the show next Monday, March 14th, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And thanks a lot for coming and sharing with us all your thoughts and insights about retirement and more.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been tons of fun. I don't think I've ever done anything like this before. And this is just so this is fun. I look forward to doing more of this, and like Mary said, if you guys out there that are listening need some, just even some, whatever you think might be a dumb question or dumb advice, shoot us a message. We'll give you an answer. It may not be the best answer, but we'll give you our answer, and it'll at least give you some idea of where to go from there. But yeah, thanks a lot, Mary. This has been a ton of fun.
Absolutely, thank you, and I look forward to talking to you about PTSD and acute stress next Monday, March 14th, with Loriana Sargent, Mike Romo, and Charles Luetta. You guys have a great day, and thanks for listening today. And if you didn't get to listen to us today, you can get our archive on either Remotely Unique on Facebook or remotely-unique.com. The archive will be there sometime today. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You're listening to Remotely Unique with Mary Baca, only on LA Talk Radio.